Hello everyone, this is 𝙤𝙤𝙝𝙬, Assistant Professor, Department of EEE, 𝙤𝙤𝙗𝙗 Academy of Higher Education. Welcome to our last module, that is the oxygen cycle. So we all know that the oxygen is the second major constituent of the earth, that is oxygen occupies 21% of the air particle, right. So in the previous module we have discussed that air is occupied by carbon, oxygen and other gases, and 78% has been contributed by nitrogen factor, and the remaining 21 we go for oxygen. So this is the part that we are going to focus on. 21% of the air is a mixture of oxygen. So this oxygen, it moves in three spheres, that is our biosphere, lithosphere and hydrosphere, and this is the major component that we human beings as well as plants and animals need for the survival of life or existence on this earth. Okay, so this is the main parameter that we need for our survival on the earth. So who all get benefited? The plants, animals and the human beings. We always need oxygen for our existence. So the next thing is, let me tell you the oxygen cycle. So we have trees or plants that has been involved in the process of photosynthesis. So we clearly know that this photosynthesis takes place because of the sun's rays when they fall on the plants as well as on the trees. So this photosynthesis part is nothing but the preparation of your chlorophyll or starch that is present in it. So due to this, what happens? Oxygen will be released in the atmosphere. And we have animals and human beings in the earth. So these anaerobic organisms, they used to inhale this oxygen that is present in the atmosphere. This oxygen is available freely in nature, and this oxygen is inhaled by animals and humans, and they again breathe out the carbon dioxide. And this carbon dioxide will be again inhaled by the plants and oxygen will be let out. This is the cycle of oxygen, how it continues. So I am segregating it into stage 1, stage 2 and stage 3. Stage 1 is the process of photosynthesis. In stage 2, anaerobic organisms will be there who used to inhale the oxygen that is left out by the photosynthesis process in phase 1, and in phase 3, anaerobic organisms, they used to exhale the carbon dioxide. This is how the cycle gets continued. So as we discussed that this biosphere, lithosphere and hydrosphere is the major parts that are responsible for survival on the earth, and this biosphere is a point where all these things will get interacted, like your lithosphere and your hydrosphere and the atmosphere will intersect at a point, that is where the life exists, and that part we call it as a biosphere, and this biosphere will have an existence of 21% of oxygen, and this is how the cycle will get continued in that. Coming to the uses of the oxygen, the first thing, it is mainly used for breathing, and the second thing, it is used for combustion, and the third thing, oxygen is used for rusting, And the fourth thing, it is used for decomposition. When coming to this breathing part, this is common to all humans, plants and animals. This is the part for survival of life. And coming to combustion, this is where the fossil fuels will come to place. Burning out the fossil fuels, what happens? Burning of the fossil fuels will lead to the production of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And next thing is the rusting. Rusting is nothing but when we have a large amount of metal particles, when it is disposed for years along with oxygen in the moisture, what happens? It will discharge into small particles and that will lead to the production of this metal oxides. So, oxygen is one of the main parameter that is needed for production of this oxides, and that method we call it as rusting. And final method is nothing but decomposition. This decomposition takes place because of plants and animals. When this dead plants and animals get decomposed in the presence of oxygen in the soil, we used to get the carbon dioxide, and that carbon dioxide is released to the atmosphere, and that released carbon dioxide will be fed by the plants and then the oxygen will be developed. This is what happens in decomposition, and this decomposition process depends only on oxygen and carbon dioxide, and this is how in the earth crust we are able to get large amount of output of oxygen from the earth crust. So, this is how the cycle is getting continued. So, coming to the conclusion part, we are having three spheres in the biosphere, that is your lithosphere, hydrosphere and the atmosphere. And coming to the gaseous cycle, this gaseous cycle comes under the bio-geochemical cycle. This bio-geochemical cycle is nothing but where the nutrients and other organisms used to meet in a closed loop, and that cycle used to get continued, and in that bio-geochemical cycle we come across gaseous cycle, which is the transformation of gaseous particles in the atmosphere, and gaseous particle is nothing but the carbon cycle, oxygen cycle and the nitrogen cycle. And we know that this is occupied by 78% and this is occupied by 21%. So, this is how the module has been winded up, that is about all the natural resources, and we have focused on three major natural resources, and these three cycles are responsible for our survival of life on the earth. So, I hope you all remember our previous modules. We started with nature and its resources, and I concluded that nature is mainly because of three major resources. I told you that life on earth exists because of three parameters, that is water and soil and the air. So, what happens in other planets? There is no possibility of these three parameters. When these three parameters are available, we call it as earth, right? This earth is mainly composed of air, and that air is a mixture of carbon, nitrogen and oxygen, and that is what we have discussed on our second module. In the second module, we have also come across the air and its pollution, how the air pollution is caused and what are the effects of air pollution. And next we move on to the third module, and in that third module I have discussed about the water and its pollution. You all clearly know that in case of air, water and soil, what happens? Everything happens mainly because of the increase of industries, increase of chemicals, increase of sewage, everything leads to the pollution. And we have also discussed on what are the parameters that we need to take steps to control these types of pollutions. And finally, we moved on to the biogeochemical cycles in our fifth module, where we discussed about the carbon, oxygen and nitrogen cycle. From where comes this carbon, oxygen and nitrogen cycle? It comes from gaseous cycle. So how we have segmented it? We have segmented it to gaseous cycle and the sedimentary cycle. And in also sedimentary cycle, we have discussed on the phosphor cycle and also about the sulfur cycle. And we have segregated three parts. One is the carbon cycle, oxygen cycle and the nitrogen cycle. We all know that the carbon is the main part and how the carbon is getting extracted from the earth. 5 major things has been discussed on the carbon part, and then we moved on to the nitrogen cycle. That is the major cycle because 78% of the air is occupied by this nitrogen gas, and we have discussed the 4 stages, that is the nitrification stage, ammonification stage, nitrogen fixation stage and also about the final denitrification stage. And the last module we have discussed on oxygen cycle, which is the major cycle that which we humans, plants and animals need. Only because of the inhaling of oxygen we are having the survival of life on this earth. That is what we have discussed in the 8th module. I hope you all have remembered all these modules. Thank you for your listening. Thank you.